Brad Underwood is getting involved in the recruitment of another top 2025 guard. And I'm going to tell you why that gets me super excited for this season. Locked On Illini, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before I get started, I just want to thank you all, whether you're driving or you're listening to this at work or you're watching this on TV. You've made this one of the fastest growing shows on the network, and for that, I humbly thank you all. If you want to help the show, it doesn't cost you a thing. Just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. But we got a good one here for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about Brad Underwood and Orlando Antigua getting involved in the recruitment of Cayden Boozer, the number 19 overall player in the 2025 class. Also, we're going to talk about the good news that we're getting in on Devon Witherspoon, especially with the NFL season right around the corner. And it's Friday, so, Friday means we're going to go over some news and notes from the week. This episode's brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Exciting news broke on Thursday. And if you were a part of the subtext community here, link is in the description. You actually knew about this 2 days ago. And by the way, there's another star player that Illinois has been in contact with. This is just information I'm not allowed to share yet. So I have to keep it in within a closed community. But Derek Piper from 24/7 Sports tweeted yesterday that Brad Underwood and Orlando Antigua had a Zoom call with number 19 overall prospect, point guard Cayden Boozer from Miami. Now, obviously, this is a little late in the game to be going after the five-star Kaden. And right now, I believe Duke, Miami, and Florida are the main teams that are being considered for Boozer. Kaden is the twin brother of Cameron Boozer, who's the number 2 overall player in the 2025 class. And obviously, both brothers are the sons of former Chicago Bull Carlos Boozer. It seems like Illinois is mainly pursuing Kaden as opposed to Cameron, which is an interesting strategy. Most think that both are a combo package deal at whatever school that they ultimately end up at, but they haven't really confirmed that. In fact, they haven't said that themselves. It's more so what outsiders think. If one decides to go someplace, the other one will follow him. So interesting strategy by Brad. But let's talk a little bit about Cayden Boozer. 6'4", 190, great size. He's a natural point guard. And if you've watched this show before, you saw me talk about Jasper Johnson and how his shooting and his scoring jumped out at me and how he could be one of the best scorers in college basketball next season. Kaden is not the scorer that Jasper is. And again, there's people in college basketball today that aren't the scorer that Jasper Johnson is. But what jumped out to me about Cayden Boozer is his IQ. He's a very, very smart basketball player, which kind of makes sense. Obviously, he's got NBA blood in him. But when he's on the court, he really seems to know what the right decision is. Funny enough, it kind of reminds me of the game tape I was watching of Kasparis, who I'm going to get to a little bit later in this segment. Kaden can score. He can absolutely score, but he's not necessarily a high-flying type of dunker or anything like that. He's more of a crafty, knows which shots to get, and he can get his points. Both brothers won the gold for under the Team USA under 15s and under 17s. So they have a history of playing together and, being successful representing the country. And I know that's kind of big with Brad. He's all about building a culture, a successful culture, and that's kind of what he wants his locker rooms, as ever-changing as they are, to always be consistent with, to have guys who've won before on his team. So what brought us into this recruitment, especially so late? Stop me if you've heard this before. It was Orlando Antigua. Orlando is close to the Boozer family, and both twins had visited the University of Kentucky last season when Orlando was an assistant coach there. We all know Jeremiah Fears ended up decommitting from the 2025 class last month. And so Brad Underwood and Orlando Antigua are going in a different direction and going quite aggressively for Cayden Boozer. I know I sound like a broken record, but again, hiring Orlando Antigua means that you get involved with the best players in the country. And Kaden is just another example of being one of them. Having gotten word about this recruitment a couple days ago, I did get a chance to review some tape on Kaden. And I said the first thing that jumped out to me was IQ. But he really does seem like the type of player that Brad Underwood loves, at least in this latest installment of the type of player that Brad Underwood loves. There's three things that Brad really seeks out in his recruits. Number one is height. Brad likes to have length on the court. I think he saw what UConn did last year, just almost overpowering Purdue. And I think Brad is kind of chasing some of that strategy with his team this season. If you take a look at the guys that we have on our roster, they all have some pretty good length to them. Secondly, you need to be able to shoot. I don't think Brad Underwood recruits you at this point. You can be a top 10 player, but if you can't shoot the basketball, I don't think Brad wants you on his basketball team anymore. Kaden can shoot. And third, Brad wants to play positionless basketball. He likes players where he can mix and match his lineups and throw different lineups at different teams and really go after other teams' weaknesses. And so Kaden is another guy, kind of like Kasparis, who can play the one, or he can play the two. So he really does seem like the type of guy that Brad Underwood is going to be aggressively pursuing over the next few years. Now, I also wanted to bring up something that crossed my mind as well. A lot of questions were being asked when we were pursuing Jasper Johnson a couple months ago. Hey, we already had Jeremiah Fears at the time, and obviously we have Kylan Boswell and Jacques Uchonis on next year's team, there seemed to be a lot of guards already on the Illini. So why were we continuing to pursue or prioritize another guard? Well, Jeremiah Fears, obviously he didn't quite work out. I think the recruitment of Cayden Boozer suggests that the Jasper Johnson one might be going in a different direction. By the way, I'm actually hearing I might be wrong. It's not Kentucky that's leading for Jasper. It might actually be North Carolina. So that should be interesting. And again, he should be committing somewhere in the next week or two. But the fact that Brad Underwood is pursuing Cayden Boozer now suggests that maybe Jasper isn't exactly coming to Champaign. But with Jeremiah gone, Jasper gone, we still have two guys on this team, right? Two very strong younger guards on this basketball team. The staff is still very aggressively pursuing another guard for next year's class. And I got to start thinking, what does that mean? I think that means that the secret is out on Kasparis. Obviously, word has gotten around that it looks like a lot of people are thinking that Kasparis could be a one and done. The footage that most people are watching on the Illini social media team, who, by the way, is doing a fantastic job, shows how skillful he is. I mentioned on the show, I didn't know who he was when I first heard his name. Decided to sit and watch some game tape, and I was floored by him, and he immediately became one of my favorite players in a very long time, and someone who I'm super excited to watch next season. But I think the staff itself now knows that Kasparis probably is a one and done guy. The staff knows that they're going to need another guard next year, most likely to play alongside Boswell. It's too late to get in on the ground floor on the KJ train, but you know what? You can still buy stock now before he really skyrockets once the season starts. And the other thing is, what I loved about Kasparis is how well he could play with a guy like Kylan Boswell. Again, you have 2 point guards on the floor. And if Kylan stays on the team next year, you have the same case. both Kaden and Kylan can play together. Now, having said that, if I'm going to keep it real with you, which I always do, this also provides us a little Kylan Boswell insurance. We all have high hopes for Kylan, but obviously it didn't work out at Arizona. And if you talk to people from the Arizona tree, they weren't exactly super sad to see Kylan leave. It seems like Kylan may have had some off-the-court distractions, which I attribute to him just being a really young player. Keep in mind, he's one of those guys who started college basketball when he was 17 years old. And so, he might have had a little bit too much fun out at the University of Arizona. But everything that we've seen of him once he got to Champaign, I mean, we've all seen the pictures. He seems to really be living in that weight room. And it really does seem like he's ultra focused on maximizing himself as a college basketball player. But what if it doesn't quite work out that way? What if he does have some struggles? There's going to be a lot of pressure on him, especially with him being one of the few veterans that we have on this basketball team. Well, if he doesn't quite work out, having another priority 2025 guard, again, now starts making sense. College basketball now is a harsh and cruel world. And we know that basically a roster spot is guaranteed for that season and that season only. You would hope that the story of the hometown kid coming home would end up with a happy ending. But if ultimately Kylan's just not a high-level basketball player like we're all hoping he is, well, then a guy like Cayden Boozer can take his spot on next year's team. Either way, what we do know is Brad Underwood is trying to consistently bring as much talent as he can to Champaign. And this pursuit of Cayden Boozer merely confirms it. The Chicago Cubs are doing it. As soon as I thought I'd stop paying attention, the Cubs all of a sudden have won 5 out of 6 and have gotten me looking up tickets to go check them out at Wrigley Field. And should I decide to do that, of course, the only app I'm going to use is Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.com released an article on Thursday showcasing the top 10 cornerbacks in the upcoming NFL season. And we had our very own Devon Witherspoon amongst the top 10. Not too shabby for a guy who's only played one season at that level. Obviously, you can't help but feel great for Devon, a guy who at one point was a 0-star high school athlete, recruited by Lovie Smith to come to Champaign and continue just to work his butt off once he got here and to develop into a top 10 draft pick last season. But this also has to be great news for Bret Bielema and the staff. Devon Witherspoon, while drafted by Lovie Smith, was also developed by Bret Bielema, Aaron Henry, and Ryan Walters out at Purdue. With Big Ten Media Days next week, which, by the way, I'm going to be at. So if there's any particular questions you wanted me to ask Coach Bielema or one of the other coaches, please drop them in the description here or in the chat. Let me know, and I'll do my best with the amount of time that I have with each coach. Now, getting back to what I was talking about, I'm pretty sure we're going to hear this article referenced next week when Bret is up on the stage. I think Bret goes up on Tuesday, the first day of the Big Ten Media Days. And I think this is the sort of pitch that ultimately brought Terrence Brooks to the University of Illinois. We have guys on that staff that can develop cornerbacks, and that's what Terrence Brooks wants to do. He had a good, solid couple seasons at the University of Texas, but maybe it wasn't quite good enough. Well, Terrence has got 2 more years left, and he wants to be developed by guys who are accustomed to putting people in the NFL. And again, 2 seasons ago, Brett put 3 cornerbacks or 3 defensive backs in the NFL draft, and all 3 were drafted in the top 70 picks. So the acumen is there. He knows what he's doing. And we haven't really seen the results yet when it comes to recruiting. If anything, Ryan Walters, who is now the coach at Purdue, has reaping more of the awards for developing all that talent. But I think these are the type of articles that Brett's going to be text messaging, all the preps that he is recruiting and letting him know, hey, you could be Devon. The pitch worked on Terrence Brooks. And obviously we already have a pretty young defensive back room as it is. And so the pressure is going to be on Aaron Henry in particular to develop that room so that the defense isn't a liability like it was last year. It's arguable that next year's football team is contingent on how well our defensive backs do. And if Aaron can have a solid leap in his second season as defensive coordinator and those cornerbacks can develop, I think Devon Witherspoon won't be the last guy that Illinois can tout as being one of the best cornerbacks from Illinois in the NFL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday, and we're entering our last segment, and usually I have Kent, a.k.a. Casual Big Ten, with me here. We couldn't make it work out schedule-wise today, but we'll have him back next week. Speaking of friends of the program, Big Ten Ted started his previews of every Big Ten team, and I've caught a glimpse of 1 or 2 videos already. They're super in-depth, so please check him out, Big Ten Ted at you, if you want to kind of get to know the other football teams in the conference, especially with the season inching ever so closely. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be at Big Ten Media Days next week. So please, if there's something you want to know, if there's something you want me to do, I already plan on making a couple of videos live while I'm in Indianapolis. Oh, and by the way, if any of you are close to Indianapolis or in particular Lucas Oil Stadium, let me know in the chat. We'll meet up. We'll go grab a bite to eat. I'd love to get to know some of the faces supporting this show. A couple news and notes before I head out of here. Will Riley footage is starting to come out. He's obviously on campus, and man, he looks smooth. I joked around about this on Twitter, which, by the way, you can follow me at IlliniCast or at the Sunny V. It seems like from 8 weeks I've been on the show, I've had a new favorite player every couple of weeks as soon as I see some footage dropped by the social media team. And man, Will Riley's very close to making me do it again. He looks super smooth, ultra smooth. You can see the one and done potential in him just from the 25 seconds that we saw the Illini media team release. Now, of course, this is just 25 seconds, okay? It's Friday. Allow me to be a meathead going into the weekend. Ultimately, this doesn't matter at all. I get it. But I'm just saying, if you haven't seen it, check it out. He looks fantastic. Ryan Trout from Keeping It Orange and Blue tweeted on Thursday that Avisa should be on campus sometime this week. I haven't confirmed, but that's just something to keep note of. And maybe once it is confirmed, I'll talk about it in one of next week's episodes. The women's team has landed in the top 5 for Whitney Young guard Destiny Jackson, one of the top 24, I believe she is. So Shauna Green doing work. Andy Katz has released his midsummer rankings, and he's got Illinois along with Indiana and Purdue in the top tier of the Big Ten. I have some thoughts on those tiers. I took a look at that article earlier today, but I don't think I'm having enough time to talk about it today. So I'll definitely expound on those thoughts sometime next week, but definitely check it out. I want to hear what you guys think. And I want to know what you guys think, not just about that article, but this show in general. Is there a topic that you guys want me to talk about? Again, I'm so humble. Thank you all so much for supporting the show the way you guys have. Thank you for allowing me to join you on your drive to work. Thank you for allowing me to join you while you're having breakfast. We continue to get almost over 100 subscriptions every single week on YouTube, and it's growing even faster on the audio side. So if you really want to help the show out, if you're on YouTube, do me a favor, go to Spotify or Apple and whatever your favorite podcast app is, and subscribe to me there too. It really helps the analytics portion of this show, and it really just helps us show up in the algorithm of different Illini fans, which allow me the opportunity to go to things like Big Ten Media Day and offer you guys content from there. A simple reminder, I'm the only source you have to get daily Illini content. So it's, in particular in the off season, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do to always come up with topics to talk about, but your guys' constant support really helps me wake up in the morning and motivate me to make sure I deliver the best product possible. Before you head out, feel free to follow me at IlliniCast. Say hello. Let me know in the chat, where are you guys watching this from? This past week, we had listeners from Japan. Shout out to whoever's listening to this from Japan, whether you're on YouTube or the audio side. Hit me up at IlliniCast on Twitter or X, or let me know on the YouTube stream where you're finding me from, where you're watching this from. In the future, I'm going to be doing more live broadcasts where I can kind of go back and forth with the audience. If you're into that sort of thing, you can follow me at IlliniCast, where I do have a little bit more audience interaction, and we'll be doing a stream there very, very soon. But I hope you all enjoy your weekends. Should we have any breaking news, hit that notification button on this page right here, and you'll be sure to know that I'll be going live almost immediately talking about it. I'll be following along with the Summer League. We'll see how Tanner Shannon Jr. continues to do. Hopefully Marcus Damask will get some playing time. Same with some of the other guys, Georgie and Quincy. We'll kind of have a recap of that on Monday. And then Tuesday, I'll be at Big Ten Media Week. So again, something I'm very excited for, and an opportunity I only have because you guys continue to support the show. I hope you all enjoy your weekends. ILL. Love you guys.